In this video I'm going to try and improve the traction on my 8F locomotive in N-gauge. How hard can that be? Okay, well the first thing is to run a baseline test. Just want to see how bad the traction problems become. I'm running this loco up the incline. It's being driven by I-train. An I-train should stop it at the top of the incline, and it would do that if the track was flat. So if we see how short it falls, that tells us how much slippage there is. I'll mark where it stopped with this clip, and that way I can make some changes to the loco and have another go, see if I've made it better. Okay, so to do some work on this loco and try and improve the traction, I've got it here on the workbench. This is just on a tray with a T-tail. The T-tail sort of stops anything bouncing away. So there's a few things I need to work on it. I've got a small set of screwdrivers here. Here's one I can point with. That's a good start. Now, what I anticipate is that the problem is the traction tyre. And this loco's got it's got 4 sets of driving wheels, but this one at the back has traction tyres on. The tenders only got pickups, they're not motorised, so we don't have to worry about those. And so what I'm going to try and do is put new traction tyres on. Now, I've bought what I think are the right traction tyres. I've got these. It says Stania 8F. This is obviously an original Graham Farish accessory. There's 10 here. It cost about £10 or something stupid. Anyway, my first question is: do they look about the right size? They look a bit small, to be honest. But let's just have a look. Maybe that's about right. Maybe I could squeeze one of those on. If it's not the right size, well, I don't know what is, so I haven't got any option other than to give it a go. Now, the only problem is I can't get the tyre on because the crank pin is sort of blocking it, so I need to remove the crank pin. And in order to do that, I've gone and got myself one of these, a Loco crank pin box spanner. From what I understand, at the end of this pin, it's basically a 2mm hex. What do you call it? Sort of bolt thing on the top. So this is just a 2mm hex spanner, but you can't really get that as a sort of standard tool. So there you go. You end up paying a bit more for something that's branded as working for removing crank pins, but that's all it is. It's a 2mm hex, I believe. And I suppose having it in this format stops you from over torquing it. I can't really see there's anything I need to do first, other than just try and have a go at removing the pin. Alright, I need to keep this in the camera, don't I? So I'll just try and pop it on. Okay, well that seems to have engaged. And okay, I'll just put a thumb there. Let me turn it a bit so you can see. And I'll just try and lefty-loosey undoes it. Let's see. Oh dear. Feels a little bit tight, I have to say. And I think that's moving. I realise you can't see much. There you can see that's turning. Okay. Well, it's definitely the right size. It definitely fits on the end of this. It's quite stiff to turn. But I think that's just because I don't have much leverage. Anyway, I think this is definitely coming out. And there, I've removed the crank pin. So it's nice and small. It's just got a hex head, so it fits in that tool. So now, if I remove the tyre, I should be able to get it out. There are a few other sort of challenges. You notice this. I suppose this is a piece of plastic that's supposed to be part of the brakes. So it's got a sort of slide out from there as well. I do wonder what the sort of recommended procedure for doing this is. Because I'm just ploughing in with a little screwdriver. I could get a scalpel and cut it, but I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. There we go. So I've managed to get the screwdriver under it, and obviously I can just work around. Really messed it up. There we go. So I've mostly loosened it up. So there's two obstacles. One's to get it under the crank pin or under the crank shaft, and the other is to loosen it up from that brake. But I think we've done that. There we go. And let's compare that in size to the replacements. Well, it does seem a bit bigger, but maybe that's the problem. Perhaps it's become a bit loose and that's why it's slipping. So now let's try and put one of the replacements on. I'll be a bit careful opening the packet because obviously there's 9 more that I'm not going to be using just yet. I think this is one. I'm not a massive fan of traction tyres. I think you end up needing them for steam engines. For diesels, electric, if you've got motorised front and rear bogie, then normally I think that's going to give you sort of more traction. But for the steam engines, not only do you only have one bogie, but you have less weight on those driving wheels, so you get less traction. So often you end up having to have traction tyres, and they do give you a bit more traction, I believe. However, it comes at a cost, and the cost is that they wear out after a while and need replacing, and that's a real pain. So I've never done this before, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I will try and hook it under the crankshaft first. Because that's the first thing dealt with. If I can do that, there we go, I'll just lift it up a little bit. There we go. So that's under the crankshaft, that's a good start. When I say I'm not going to be using another one again for a while, obviously you need two of these, one on each side. So actually I'll be using two of them now. So a packet of 5, that gives you, a packet of 10 gives you 5 replacements. If you need the bleeding obvious stated on anything else, let me know. I'm wondering if it's a good idea to put the crank pin back in now. Probably not. Probably not. Use this. Yeah, that's going to help. So there is another approach to this, which is I could take the bottom plate off and then remove the whole axle, remove the whole wheel set, and maybe that's a good idea. Let me remove the other crank pin. So I get the feeling this is the start of like a bad thing. It's going to turn into a bit of a saga if I do this. So that's removed both the crank pins. So if I then remove these 3 screws here, I ought to be able to remove the bottom plate. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe this is a terrible idea. Oh. So that's not going to happen because 2 of the wires are in the way. I can also see where the pickups are. Tiny pickups just there. So that's going to be an issue of putting it back in. Very impressed to see it's got brass bushings on the wheel there, on the axle. I have to take it all the way out now. Take these screws all the way out and put it back together properly. Maybe it won't come out. Let's take this out as well. There we go. Well, and there's a washer there. So all the pickups are wired directly to these wires that go straight to the back. Here we go. So all the pickups on these wheels, they're wired straight to there. That's all. That's where all the pickups are. So I can now take this out at least. You can see there's these brass bushings. So that's good to see. That makes it all run a lot smoother. And also looks like it's going to make it a lot harder to put everything back together again. Anyway, at least now I can deal with the traction tyres. So I think that's on reasonably well. It's quite hard to tell whether it's perfectly in the groove or not. You sort of have to hold it against the light background and see. Okay, so I've got the wheels, the tyres on. I think all I need to do now is try and put the whole thing back together again, which may be easier said than done. I will give it a go there. So the issue is there's these two bushings, these two brass bushings, and they presumably need to go in the right place. I think they're not perfectly round, they're slightly square. So they may need to get the correct orientation as well. That might become a bit of a bore. So this bushing's in, this one isn't. The reason this one isn't is I can't quite see from my angle. There we go. I've got that dropped in. I think that's about right. I can put the crank pins back on there. At least that'll hold the wheel set in place. Okay. So that's the way to do that then, is hold the pin in the box spanner. put the crank pin in the box spanner. That seems to have got it. So I just tighten these up a bit. Turn it round, do the other one. There. Now, the only thing left to do now is to put the base plate back on. I'm aware of these tiny pickups, if you can see them. 1, 2, 3, and I think number 4 there as well. We'll just manoeuvre the wheels back and forth. I think we can probably just make sure the pickups slide in. That's a lot easier than I thought that was going to be. I think all the pickups are on the inside of the wheels. I don't think any of them have been forced. So that has worked out easier than I imagined that was going to be. Let me get one of these screws in and I'll feel a bit more relaxed. Okay, so this is the same test as I ran at the start of the video, although obviously this time we've got new traction tyres. So the idea is it shouldn't slip as much and it will go a bit further up the incline than the clip. So let's see where it actually ends up stopping. Well, you see that's an improvement, but it's not all the way to the top of the hill. So this is just a piece of lead. I've wrapped it up in Kaptan tape to insulate it, and I'm going to use a bit of black tack to attach it to the top of the loco, just to increase the weight and hopefully improve the traction. So the extra weight has enabled it to go just a little bit further, so that's obviously good, but reality is I'm not able to hide this much weight within the model, so that's not going to be an option for me. This is just a test run, having removed the extra coaches that I added to the train. So in fact the wagons are attached now. This is the way this train will be. So if I can get a good result from this, then I'll be happy. And finally, a test run with just the loco. I'm running this just to prove to myself that without any train for it to pull, the locomotive will stop accurately at the top of the hill. Okay, so in the end, I was quite pleased with the result actually. The old traction tyres are definitely a bit larger than the new ones, and they were definitely slipping a bit. And although I didn't get the train to go all the way to the top of the hill, it's certainly an improvement on what was happening, and it should mean that for a while that loco will perform decently. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope you'll join me on the next one.